This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1777, Comic Talk.
Laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek, uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is.
I'm Shane Kelly.
I'm Ian Levinstein.
I'm Adam Murdo.
And I'm Chris Eberly.
And welcome back, one and all, to the show that never ends.
One hopes.
I'm so glad you could attend. Come inside. Okay. And how's everybody doing tonight in comic book land?
Now that I hear your honey tones, Levinstein, I'm feeling quite good.
Good.
Excellent. Yep. We are post July 4th and back in the grind. And again, the kismet of episode 1776 being when it was, I still can't get over that.
Oh, that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wish I could have made that. I'm sorry I took the opportunity for me and the boys to get haircuts.
Oh, no, please. Trust me. Trust me in this day and age, whenever you can get a haircut, get one.
Shane, as always, your radiance was deeply missed, but believe me, I echo what Ian just said. If you can get a haircut, you can't get that slot up.
Yeah. I was thinking, well, maybe I'll do it in a week or two. I'm like, nah, suppose something goes wrong. I better get one now.
Always a good choice. Did you get a chance to read the materials in question, Shane? Or
well, no. Once I made the appointment, I kind of kiboshed doing that because I was going to read them that night.
Fair enough.
And if we would have postponed it for another day, then I would have read them later that night and the next day so that they were kind of fresh in my head.
Makes sense to me.
I'm going to go back and read them, though. I have them bookmarked to do so.
Excellent. Well, when you do, we can discuss them on a future comic talk, perhaps. Your passing glances on that amazing Captain America costume.
Yeah, it sounds good.
I think you'll get a kick out of Eisner's Uncle Sam, too, Shane.
Oh, I'm sure I will.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so general loosey-goosey comic talk for us all tonight. So I guess we should begin with some unfortunate passings. As we mentioned in passing on our last episode, unfortunately, the comics world has lost two of its greatest since the last time we had one of these comic talks, Mr. Denny O'Neil and Mr. Joe Sinnott. And I mean, their contributions to comics are impossible to name all of, but they will have lasting ramifications for years to come.
Well, I mean, for one thing I wanted to mention right off the bat, if someone's interested in a relatively recent and exhaustive interview with Denny O'Neil, go to Alter Ego issue 123, cover date March 2014. They pretty much go through his whole career. And it's a tremendous interview, starting with his, him writing with Charlton and then Marvel and DC and his editing, and it's a great interview. So it's in his own words. So a lot of great as always, a lot of great illustrations, original art, photographs. Check out Alter Ego 123. But Denny O'Neil, because I kind of skimmed through the interview again, you almost forget just the sheer breadth of his talent and his career and what he was involved in. I mean, a great writer and a great editor. He touched so many different characters. I mean, I'm sure many listeners are well aware of his work with Neil Adams on both Batman and Green Arrow, Green Lantern, which is legendary in comic book history. He edited Frank Miller on Batman. He scripted Daredevil, Doctor Strange. In fact, they have in the issue they actually have a checklist of all of his creative work. So he just did a tremendous body of work. They left the comic book reading community. So
now I have to say I've never read the Green Lantern, Green Arrow books when he and Oh my gosh, I'm blanking.
Neil Adams.
Yeah,
Neil Adams, when Neil Adams did him. So when I heard of his passing, I pulled it off the shelf, put it on my read pile. I read the first couple issues, and then I read something else. So I got to get back to finishing all of those because I have a couple trades with them in it. But I was determined. I'm like, I've had these on my shelf for years, and I've wanted to pick them up, so I put them on the pile. Something else, when we had Denny O'Neil on the show years and years and years ago, if I remember right, sometime during the show or even before or after the show, there was a discussion about a novel he had written at that time for, let's see, Pocket Star Books, and it was Justice League of America, Green Lantern, Hero's Quest.
Mm-hmm.
And I belonged to a sci-fi book club at that time, and somehow I ended up with 2 copies of it. And the book club versions were in hardback. And through the course of the discussion, he said, well, I don't have a hardback of that. So I remember sending him one of my copies of the hardback.
Oh, wow.
Way back when. So I don't know if he ever got it. I mean, I never expected a response or anything, but I assume he did because I got the address and mailed it off to him. So if it got to where it was supposed to, he had one of my copies of Hero's Quest that I had accidentally ordered 2 of them somehow and didn't need to. So I gave him one.
And
so it was kind of cool.
And that episode was nearly 15 years ago, October 3rd, 2005, episode 62, a conversation with Denny O'Neil.
I didn't realize it was quite that early on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Have we all read some of his Neil Adams Batman work?
I've read the occasional issue. It's again, one of the many holes in my reading life is that era of Batman. However, I have read a couple of the issues via the DC Universe app, and I think even earlier than that, it may be in one of the trades that I have on my shelf. The fact as well that, I mean, way later than that, he created Azrael with Joe Quesada, a character that was so pivotal to the Batman universe for as long as it has been. Says just the staying power of his influence on Batman, both in that early run and later on.
Well, and obviously one of the most important aspects of his career was that he created, I believe this is how he wanted to pronounce, Ra's al Ghul.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Talia. So, I mean, the impact of those characters alone would give him a spot on the pantheon. But I'm looking at the checklist of his work. Like for his work for DC Comics alone, it's enormous. I mean, the amount of titles that he worked on, major titles we're all aware of, or major runs we're all aware of. But then even things like Nightmaster from 1969, The Phantom Stranger, 1970, Richard Dragon, 1976 to 1977. So here you go, Murd, Secret Origin Batman, 1989. He wrote the Shadow series, which was with great Mike Kaluta art in the 70s. He did Shazam in the Bronze Age, and the Marvel Family as well. Sherlock Holmes, The Spectre, Strange Adventures. Just wow, incredible. And then his Charlton work, and work for Marvel as well, which was also fairly extensive. Not as extensive as DC, but. What a giant, and a consistently superb writer. When you're reading a Denny O'Neil story, that feel to it, the way he had with dialogue. He's one of those younger writers, like he came with like Roy Thomas, Steve Skates, Mike Friedrich, writers like that, who brought a little more of a sort of a pop culture and topical sensibility to what they were writing. So, fantastic writer and editor.
Yeah.
I mean. So, and then Joe Sinnott, which, come on.
Now,
I mean,
let me point out, he died at the age of 93. He was inking the Amazing Spider-Man Sunday comic strip until last year.
Yep. Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I did not know that either. But reading his Wikipedia entry, bringing that up, that is an achievement at the age of 92, still... inking a regular Sunday strip. That's outstanding.
Wow.
The previous decade, I went to a comic show at a high school. I don't remember where it was. Forgive me. Somewhere in New Jersey. I think it was like an annual thing they did, and they brought in like Gene Colan was there. I think Rags Morales was there, and Joe Sinnott was there, and his son was there with him, and he was probably in his 80s at that point. and he was doing a sketch for everybody in line.
Wow.
I mean, you know, you were paying for it, but so what? I mean, it's Joe Sinnott. But I mean, I didn't get a chance to talk to myself, but I just kind of walking around and kind of watching, just such a personable, you know, man, just so friendly, and you know, really people were really being reverent towards him and his place. And if some listeners aren't aware, he's one of the great secret weapons of the Marvel Silver Age. A lot of the great Kirby Fantastic Four art that people drool over, a lot of that is inked by Joe Sinnott.
Yep.
And a lot of people consider Sinnott one of Kirby's, if not Kirby's greatest inker. And if you look at some of the great Fantastic Four books especially from the mid '60s and on, a lot of that Sinnott inking. I'm not an expert on inking, but from all I've read over the years, like a lot of people who know more than me just felt that he just really knew how to ink Kirby.
Yeah.
And to really bring out the brilliance of Kirby's pencils. I know Kirby was a big fan of his inking. I think they only met once at a comic convention.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like they didn't. I don't think they actually met too many times in real life, Kirby and Sinnott. But I mean, he's all over Marvel.
Wow.
And he was a certainly capable penciler as well as most great inkers are. I want to say inked the first appearance of Doctor Doom. I think he did. I mean, there's so many Marvel titles. Fantastic Four is the most famous, of course, where Sinnott is inking, and he was inking well into. I remember reading books for him in the 80s, probably even the 90s, where he was still inking.
Yeah.
So, it's an example of people often forget. Like you go back to like Kevin Smith's Chasing Amy. Well, you mean you're a tracer? You know, and you know, great inkers. It's obviously so much more involved and complex than that.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
And you know, a great inker can really bring out the essence of what the penciler is shooting for. Because some pencilers will give almost like a rough page to an inker, depending on who the penciler is. And the inker has to really flesh that out considerably and then try to get a sense of what the penciler wants. Again, what's the essence of the pencils. And, you know, there are certain inkers who are in a class by themselves when it comes to that. And he's way up there.
Oh, sure.
I mean, you know, like he wasn't like too heavy-handed. Like some inkers, sometimes they overwhelm the pencils. Not Joe Sinnott.
Yeah.
He served the penciler and he served the story.
Well,
so
and that's one of the things too. I mean, especially you bringing up the fact that you know, I don't even to this day I feel like not enough people appreciate just how much work an inker can do.
Oh yeah.
And I remember there was a competition years ago on the original comic book resources before its hideous redesign and change into, you know, top 10 ways Spider-Man goes to the bathroom. You know, like it's very, very much that type of site now. But back in its glory days, they had a competition. It was an art competition, and one of them involved inking. And you got to see all of these different inkers take a page and draw over it. And every single inker made it look significantly different because that's how much a style can go into it. You know, and I mean, certainly, you know, we've seen over the years when, you know, artists ink themselves, it will look significantly different than when someone else inks it. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's not. Because I know plenty of artists that I feel like are better when they're inked by someone else other than themselves, because you get that further insight into, you know, how a page layout is going to go when you have an extra set of hands involved.
Yeah, and absolutely. And you think of some of the great pencil inking teams like, you know, Gene Colan and Tom Palmer.
Yep.
For example, on Tomb of Dracula, or Doctor Strange in the Silver and Bronze Age, or Klaus Janson and Frank Miller.
Yep.
Is another great example, and there are many more. But you hit the nail right in the head. I mean, an inker can make or break a page, and
Absolutely.
Sinnott never broke a page, as far as I can tell. So, yeah, it's always sad when you read these stories, but the comfort is when you look, you can see what these people have achieved in their profession, and the sheer vast breadth of work that they're leaving behind, especially these two guys. Oh my God.
And, and these are the ages that I want to see legends of the industry passing. It's when, you know, when people pass in their 30s and their 40s that it hits the hardest for me. You know, when they have a full breadth of legacy and, you know, they've lived their lives and, you know, they're in their 80s or their 90s, you've got so many pieces of fantastic work to go back to and be like, you could start it at the beginning of their career and go until the end of it, and you'll probably be reading it until you're in your 90s.
That's a good point, Ian, because that makes you think of like Mike Roingo, for example, which was just a gut punch.
Yeah.
Or Darwin Cook is another.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, so.
And even Michael Turner.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed. When it first came out, I enjoyed Fathom. I jumped right on it.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the artwork. I still have a couple prints from one of the last conventions I went to that he attended. I remember Matt was there and picked me up a Batman and Catwoman print. I got a Teen Titans one and a Flash one.
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, let's raise our various symbolic glasses
Indeed.
to Denny O'Neil and Joe Sinnott.
Yep.
You're here.
And if you wanted to check out an interview with Joe Sinnott, us at Comic Geek Speak never had the opportunity, unfortunately, but the Epic Marvel podcast had an interview with him back in 2018.
Recently, okay.
Yes, so it goes through the whole scope of his career essentially.
Wow.
And that's well worth checking out if you get the opportunity.
Yeah, and there's if you go through like tomorrow's publications, there's interviews with Joe Sinnott. I don't have any right in front of me, but and he's very he's very open about his career. He talks all about his technique and different books he worked on and who he worked with and stories about Stan Lee and Kirby, and he's a good interview.
Yep.
So
absolutely. Yep. So it goes. The wheel keeps turning.
I love when Ian goes into like his Levensteinian philosophical modes.
To everything.
Tremendous.
Turn. Okay.
So then you get schmaltzy. I love it.
Yeah, I know. Very much changing gears. There was some news that broke a little bit before we started recording tonight that I know some of us will be interested in as we've been watching the show as it's been on CW or the DC Universe.
I know what you're talking about.
Yep.
As do I.
Yep. It was announced earlier today that Stargirl is just going to be on the CW for its second season. It will be leaving the DC Universe app entirely.
I'm thrilled that it got a second season. I'm terribly disappointed it's not on the app.
Now, what was the reason for that, Ian? Did they explain?
They have not really explained, but I can kind of explain it for you in the way that I will be surprised if there is still a DC Universe app in its current form by the end of this year.
I completely agree with that assessment.
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
HBO Max.
Yep.
I think that with the launch of that, Warner Media is going to try to consolidate. They're already consolidating their HBO apps. So anyone who has HBO Go or HBO Now will have HBO Max. Like that will be the version of HBO that's out there for you.
Now that is problematic though for some platforms because Amazon Fire Sticks don't have an HBO Now yet.
Yep.
There's a negotiation that hasn't taken place.
Yeah, and same with Roku as well, Shane.
Right.
And I'm very much ensconced in the Roku ecosystem, and I am very, very annoyed that I have to connect my laptop to my TV in order to watch HBO Max.
Well, see, because Ian, that I'm in the same boat because I have Roku and I have HBO Now on it.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming at some point it's going to change to HBO Max. Is that
if they make the deal with Roku? Yeah.
If they make the deal, yeah.
Okay.
If they don't,
Now,
yeah.
I will say, and I forgot about this, and I turned it on the other day because I heard something, and I went and checked it out.
Yep.
I was able to download it to my PlayStation.
Okay. Good.
So that's connected to the TV. So I'm like, okay, well now I'm better because I don't have to rely on the computer, the phone, whatever. I can, and I have it in the living room. I have an Apple TV box in the living room, so that's not a problem. It's already on that. But yeah, I could download it to the PlayStation I have, so I can watch it through that.
Well, most importantly, Stargirl's been renewed. I'm a few episodes behind, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, that's true. Most importantly, it's gotten another season. I'm just disappointed about how the app seems to be waning already. And if you go on the forums and everything, it's everything's fine. There's nothing about it to disappearing as far as everyone says. But in the back of my head, what else would they say? You can't say, well, we're going to leave. And, you have to look at things that are happening. And in conjunction with that, DC Daily, it was also canceled, and that's done.
Yeah.
And that was their daily show about all things DC.
Right.
Like it or not, it was still something that was kind of interesting for a new app like that.
Now, let's say they do get rid of the app. What would happen to all the comics?
That's why. That's why I was hoping, and the way that I put it specifically was it in its current form.
Okay.
Because I'm hoping that what they'll wind up doing is lowering the price and making it just like Marvel Unlimited.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, where it's
At the very least.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Because I'd be perfectly happy if they kept all the content, even though I don't like the content for the shows and movies rotating the way it does.
Yeah.
Even if they did keep that intact, because I like watching old Super Friends and old cartoons that I don't own and really don't want to go out and buy, but they're there, so I watch them. I throw them on and listen to them in the background, or I watch them on a Saturday morning. I mean, it's a great resource for me in that way. There's always something for me to watch on there, and I do quite often every week.
Well, a decent amount of the stuff is already available on HBO Max. I know that.
Is it?
I believe most of the movies that are available on the DC Universe app are available on HBO Max, and I think, don't quote me on this, I think Batman the Animated Series is available on HBO Max. If it's not, then it probably will be with this transition.
I know the one of the more recent versions where it was the more computerized Beware the Batman.
Yes.
I know that's on there.
Yes.
Which that was never on the app.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of cool to see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like you said, Ian, in a form that at least keeps the comics intact.
Yeah. I actually just loaded up the HBO Max on my laptop here to take a look at stuff that they have for DC. They have the kids movie JLA Adventures Trapped in Time. They have most, if not all, of the animated movies, including New Frontier, Crisis on Two Earths, Doom, so on and so forth. They just added all 4 Superman movies, including Superman Returns. So,
I did know that.
Yep.
Yep.
And the original Batmans are on there as well. So yeah, and you are right. It's just as of now the Beware the Batman. But they also have, I think, Teen Titans on here, the original Teen Titans.
Okay.
And a couple of other random series here and there.
When you say the original Titans, you mean the cartoon from the 70s?
No.
The slightly less original Teen Titans.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. The original to me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was showing my age there again, but I had to specify.
No, please. Yeah, by all means. Yeah.
So, Ian, let me ask this question because you're plugged in. So, let's say Roku and HBO do not make a deal. Will I just still have HBO now, or just be taken off completely?
For now,
Taken off completely.
Well, for now, for now, you will have HBO Now. But you're not going to be able to download the HBO Go app as of I think the beginning of this month, and they're sunsetting it as in it may not even work after July 31st.
See,
what I saw was July
if Deemer were on this episode in his magnificently abrasive opinions, he'd be saying, "Why do you even have HBO at all? Because they're charging too much. Get rid of it."
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And I mean, to be 100% frank, the way that I have my HBO Max is that my mom has cable, so that's one of the reasons why I have it. I would probably pay for HBO Max once this is all said and done, and they've added everything, but they're still adding things, so it's not quite worth it for me yet. So we'll see if I make the leap. But I do pay for Disney Plus. I have 3 years of that, and have now watched Hamilton 1.5 times, and we'll probably watch it about 3 more.
All right, you know what? I've and this is me of all people. I've never seen Hamilton before it was put on Disney Plus because I could never swing going to one of the actual productions.
Yeah, me either.
And I watched the first half of it.
Yeah.
It lived up to the hype. It's magnificent. I mean, he glosses over some things for the sake of the story, but that's just me being a history student. But, it's really well done.
He was originally going to also include more on John Adams and Benjamin Franklin, but the story didn't lend itself to it. So he wound up having to essentially excise Ben Franklin almost entirely from it. But there is an excellent Decemberist song about the history of Benjamin Franklin that came out as what they called a Hamilton drop, as in like a free download online that I believe Lynn helped write the lyrics to. You can easily hear that being in the play in one form or another about the history of Ben Franklin. So that's pretty cool.
I wanted to sit down and watch it this weekend. We were just too busy redoing something in the house and didn't get a chance to. But I turned it on, watched the first minute or two, just to make sure it was in my, quote, continue watching part.
Yeah.
And I want to sit down the next week and watch that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Where is everyone on Stargirl right now, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
I have to watch today's episode.
Okay, yeah.
I just watched Our Man and Dr. Midnight.
Nice.
Okay.
Murd?
I need to go back and watch the opening of last week's episode because I tuned in a little too late to see it. But other than that, I'm caught up to the present day.
Great.
And it has been getting better as it goes along, I must say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Actually, they're really building a world, which is nice to see, and I kind of like the chibi JSA. You know, like the.
Now the only problem I'm having, and this is just probably my own little pet peeve, they're very loud whenever they're talking about it or doing anything. Very open. Yeah. Like, you can't tell me people aren't walking in the town and don't see things flying overhead, that people don't hear names being shouted out in addition to JSA or Justice Society. They're extremely loud. I can't imagine no one's not overhearing this, but that's the way it is. So that part does bother me because I just can't hear. I cannot think about walking through school yelling all this stuff and nobody turning their head going, what? What'd they just say?
What I'm enjoying, Shane, and I granted I'm a couple episodes behind, but if you guys want to spoil things, it's fine. Don't worry about it. But Shane, I think when we watched the first episode, I think you had a fantastic moment of prescience because the more episodes I watch, the more I'm thinking, Shane's right. This whole town is wrong.
Oh yeah,
I really like. I think when you made that prediction, and it just seems like more and more you're right on the money. I'm always getting almost like a Body Snatchers vibe. Like there's something really off about the entire town.
While watching that, also in the last week, I picked up my second volume. I guess it was a week ago. I picked up the second volume of G.I. Joe: The Complete Collection, which covers issues 13 through 24. Yeah. And we haven't gotten to Springfield yet. I just started volume 3 today at lunch. Yeah. So I'm going to be getting there, but that's exactly what I think. It's Springfield. The town, to drive through it, you'd never know it, but all of Cobra is underneath. That's what I think of this. Almost everything that matters in this town has a tie to the Injustice Society. That's just the way it looks.
And I wanted to ask Murd a question. I think it was the third episode. Who's the creepy villain in the hood with the reptilian eyes?
Oh, that would be the Dragon King.
Okay.
Yes, he's kind of a retrofit invented by Roy Thomas during his run on the All-Star Squadron. He was a World War II era villain who represented the Japanese Empire. I think he was the one who had his hands on remember how Hitler had the Spear of Destiny in his Fortress Europa, and over there in Japan, the Dragon King had the Holy Grail, and the two of them, those artifacts working together, created this magical force field around the Axis-held territories that caused any magic-susceptible superhuman from the Allies that entered those regions to become suddenly magically converted to the Axis cause. So, and he also was used by Jeff Johns in the original Stars and Stripes series as kind of a background villain, and Cindy Berman, in the comics as in the TV show, was his daughter, who eventually became the villainous Shiv.
All right, because I was looking forward to your explanation because I figured it was a character from the comics, but I wasn't familiar with him. So, but I love what I'm really enjoying about the show, especially, is to see the Justice Society, either the originals or their legacies, and the costumes, like everything, like they're not sort of being like eye rolling and tongue in cheek about it. It's very sincere, and I'm really enjoying that. It's a lot of fun.
Well, and I appreciate how they've worked in continuing to use Henry Thomas as Dr. Midnight.
Oh my gosh,
as sort of like the internal voice, almost the Jarvis of the Dr. Midnight goggles. That's pretty cool. And as a fan of Young Justice and Young Justice the animated series, getting to see Sportsmaster and his daughter Artemis, that was leaps and bounds. I was not expecting that at all, and then bringing them in was a huge woohoo on my part.
Now, I will say the big fight between the would-be Justice Society, the up-and-coming Justice Society, Sportsmaster, and Tigress was probably the cheesiest looking out of anything in the show so far.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Everything else has been great.
Yeah, it's not supposed to look good, Shane. I mean, it's supposed to make the fledgling JSA look bad. So maybe that was reflected in the effects. They're saving the good CGI for when they want the hero to succeed,
to shine.
I mean, what I worry about as well is how if the quality is going to go down with the shift over to CW. Because the CW has a significantly lesser budget than what DC Universe has been working with. And one of the things that we've all praised this show on so far is what it looks like. So I'm worried that the shift may decrease that a little bit.
Well, and some of that could be, now that it has had a run on DC the first season, it's got things in the can, meaning the costumes, some of the effects, certain things. It could be that those are easier to reuse or manipulate down the road. Maybe not in a 70s Spider-Man kind of way, but still.
I was thinking Gigantor.
Yeah, or a Gigantor.
Yeah, Stripe is going to be doing just the same, 3 things every time we see him.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And I hope not. Like, maybe the program that they use to animate Stripe is just, it cost a lot to build the architecture around it. Now that it's there, they can pass it on to the CW to use because it won't cost as much to maintain because it's already enabled. I don't know.
And to be fair, I also look at things like Black Lightning, which look beautiful and continue to look beautiful. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that there won't be a drop in quality. It's just, we're going to have to wait and see.
Well, even Flash kept up its special effects budget versus Arrow and Legends, which kind of dropped.
Yeah.
I was really moved by the Wildcat episode, which I think James Robinson wrote. He wrote that one, correct?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, because the way they handled what happened to her as a high school student, I thought it was really well done, very affecting.
I was so angry at her parents at the end of that episode.
Well, Shane, I was just about to say that scene where she musters up the courage to confront her parents. That was a gut punch.
Yeah, that was.
And you could already, because her parents are religious fanatics, you could already tell that they weren't going to recognize their own flagrant hypocrisy. But that was a little bit more than I was expecting from a show of this. I was like, wow, this is well. Also, it was written by James Robinson, but wow, this show is more and more is just more than I expected. I'm enjoying it with each episode.
Yeah. Truth to tell, for the reasons just now cited, specifically by Shane, I would identify that episode as the low point of this season. Because, as Robinson written or non-Robinson written, religious fanatics or no religious fanatics, the way the people in Yolanda's life, both her classmates and her family, except for her brother, reacted to the situation that she found herself in. I mean, it was just 1 or 2 topless pictures. I mean, come on. I think he was trying to address the high school issue of slut shaming, which is real and deserves to be addressed, but in addressing it, it actually came closer to validating it. It's just the way the people around her reacted to this was disproportionate and unrealistic and unbelievable. I mean, no matter what her parents' beliefs are, I just find it difficult to believe that they would react in that way, that extremely. And the only way they can redeem themselves for that, in my opinion, is if, well, going back to what Shane was saying about Blue Valley not feeling right as a town, is if we eventually learn that the ISA has actually been testing their Project American Dream scheme or whatever it is, which involves broadcasting some kind of brainwashing signals, coast to coast, I assume. They've been testing it in like a lower wavelength in Blue Valley, thus causing people to kind of sleepwalk through their happy little idyllic Midwestern lives without noticing such things as superhero and villain brawls going on over their heads. And maybe Cindy Berman, who was Yolanda's rival in that class president race, co-opted this apparatus to turn the entire school and even Yolanda's own parents against her.
Yeah, could be.
That's plausible, sure.
Yeah, because that's the only way I'm going to buy in any way, shape, or form that Yolanda's own family would turn against her so completely over such a small thing as a couple of topless pictures she sent to her boyfriend.
I don't know. In general, I think you're right, Murd, but I've known some people in my teaching career who kind of did act that way. So there are some families I've known that are pretty warped when it comes to things like that. That's just been my experience. But what else, gentlemen?
Well, I did mention I was reading the G.I. Joe stuff. I'm kind of excited. It's fun to go back. I haven't read these early issues in many, many, many years. I got rid of my G.I. Joe comics. Gosh, I wasn't even married. I don't even think I was out of the house yet when I got rid of those. So that's a lot of fun to read them. I am starting to see and be more aware of just how much the toys did influence some of the things that came in as issues progress.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still a lot of fun, and I can't wait. The next issues I have to read I have to finish issue 25, and then I get the Snake Eyes origin 2-part, and I've been waiting to read those.
Yeah, when you read the G.I. Joe Marvel the Hammer stuff, I mean, what's so impressive about it is that he clearly was obliged to introduce every new vehicle and character that came down the pike, and eventually that just became a deluge. It was too much later on in the series, but
sure.
What's amazing is he was such a skilled writer how he was able to incorporate those changes into the stories and usually make them work.
Yeah.
So was always a pleasure.
Since you mentioned Springfield earlier, Shane, I can piggyback off of that and discuss something I've been reading lately that is a very different type of Springfield. For years now, I have had on the shelf the Simpsons Futurama crossover Crisis.
Oh, I have that on my shelf too.
And the copy that I have is a gorgeous hardcover that Abrams Comics Art put out. And it's oversized and even has like a couple of like extras, like reproductions of comics in the back and stuff like that that you didn't get in the original version. It's a wonder to behold. It's a really awesome crossover series that came back. It came out originally in 2010, if not earlier. The production that I'm reading came out in 2010, but the original story may have came out a little bit earlier than that.
Well, yeah. Actually, the sequel, the Simpsons Futurama Crossover Crisis 2, came out in early 2005 because I'm just now getting around to reading it.
Excellent.
The first one is even longer ago than that.
Yeah, actually, you are absolutely correct. First published as 2-part comic book series 2002 to 2005 under the titles Futurama Simpsons Infinitely Secret Crossover Crisis and The Simpsons Futurama Crossover Crisis 2. So, yep, go figure.
I have a nice hardback with a slipcase. I don't know if it's the version you're talking about.
It is. Yep, it is definitely the one. Yeah, because mine had a slipcase. It has essentially 2 covers on either side, one Futurama, one Simpsons, and in the back of the book, they included a comic and sort of like a sleeve.
Oh, cool!
With a take. The Simpsons comic is a first issue collector's item, quote unquote, that is very much a take on the first issue of Fantastic Four on the cover. There's a giant Homer busting through cement, holding Marge in his hand with Bart bouncing off his head and Lisa off to the side and Maggie entwined directly next to him.
I'm gonna reach over here and pull that off. Hang on one sec.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And the entire thing was written by the same guy. Ian Boothby is the name of the writer. And I think what works best about this entire crossover is that I can legitimately hear the voices of each voice actor in my head as I'm reading it. Like, it plays out as, as it should. Nobody sounds off in the way that it's written. Like, everybody seems like character perfect. And I appreciate that. And frankly, This is my preferred crossover because they did do a Simpsons episode years later that was a crossover with Futurama that had a much weaker plot to this. And I would have just loved to see them just adapt this, quite frankly.
I do have the exact version you're talking about, Ian. Wow.
Yep, right on.
I forgot what was inside of it. I forgot about that comic in it.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool thing. They have some excellent throwaway gags in it. Like they're sending they're going to the comic. No, sorry, they're going to the planet Nerdanus 12, the living planet. In order to get the largest comic collection in the world, and to have it encased in diamonds so it'll be a collectible forever. Let's think about that for a minute. And when they do so, there's the heads of Scott McCloud, Dan DiCarlo, Will Eisner, Sergio Aragonés, Jack Kirby, and Stan Lee.
Wow!
All right there on the planet that they're going to, with a bunch of different logos for comic companies, including Eclipse, First Comics, Bongo, DC, and Marvel. So, a lot of fun.
And boy, does that book smell good! Holy cow! Wow.
Yeah, mine took me back to the comic shop as well, Shane. That was
that is one good whiff.
Delicious.
Shane, one of the things I love about you is how much you always appreciated the scent of pulp.
Well, and I didn't even intend to do it with this one. I just started flipping through the pages, and this waft of goodness came over. I'm like, ooh! I pulled it up a little closer and got a good whiff. Man, that print really smells good in this one.
And the overall plot is that the Futurama gang are being thrown into comic books because in their reality, before that episode that I mentioned of Simpsons and Futurama ruined that, I'm a little bitter. The Simpsons have only existed as comic books. And as a TV series in the Futurama world. So they're thrown in the comics, and one of the first comic that they get thrown into has a Muscle Beach ad, old school. The insult man. The insult that made a man out of fry. Let Charles Thesaurus make you macho, manly, masculine, butch. Just send $10 in a muscle tissue sample to Charles Thesaurus. CO Muscle Beach Marketing, 786 Speedo Boulevard, Steroid, New Mexico, 01234.
Even the paper quality, the print, whatever they used, it's like it feels a little bit better than the DC Archives might even feel.
Yeah, it's a similar paper to what Image uses on their Invincible Ultimate collections, because that's the same type of feel and quality I get to the pages in this.
Yeah, and I love that it's not the glossy finish, so I can read it without glaring or putting on sunglasses.
Yep. The coolest thing about the entire story is that the comic they get thrown into was an actual comic of The Simpsons. Like an actual Bongo comic. They get thrown in like halfway through the plot because there's an interlude that they include in between the two miniseries where you get to see how that comic originally played out before the Futurama guys came in and changed the story. So, love it.
I want to say I picked this up at a convention somewhere along the way for like $10.
That's probably when I got mine, because mine was definitely discounted. I remember that. It may have even been on like a on a super discount rack, and for the quality, like I couldn't pass it up.
Yep.
And I
well, good. I'm glad you brought that to my attention, Ian.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, Shane, and I'm glad you got a good whiff out of it.
Oh man. That's enough to carry me through for a night.
Shane, there was something both majestic and sad about that comment. That was fantastic.
Yeah, it now we're in the heat of summer, so anytime I come up here, whether it be to work on the computer, for my daily job, or just up here to read or have fun, we're nowhere near the humidity and cool factor to get that comic store feel anytime I open the door. So I can't wait for fall to start when I get that again for a few weeks. Now we're in it's absolutely too hot outside for my taste.
Well, I mean, if you really want, you could have one of us call you up in the middle of the week and be like, well, in issue number 47.
It's not the same as opening the door and just getting that whiff.
Okay, got it.
But there are times I open the door, turn the corner, and go, "Oh, I've wasted my life."
There's a good comic book guy joke in the crossover as well, because Fry is flying around on a flying skateboard, and he makes a joke like, your Back to the Future references weak at best.
I was lucky enough. It was about 2002. Our good friend Dan Cangilla from Pittsburgh, Danny Boy, because he's probably listening to this. He went to a convention in New York. I wasn't able to go to. I don't remember which convention it was. And the guy who did the Simpsons comics was there. And it was before they prevented him from doing sketches of the characters. And I got a sketch of the comic book store guy criticizing my own shop. It was fantastic. I cherish that one. So
nice.
The great thing about that character is that obviously it's a stereotype, but it's so on the mark in so many ways. So
yeah,
fantastic. So what else have we been reading, gentlemen?
I've been reading again older stuff lately because I got a shipment from DCB Service that had just a couple comics in it. It's like a residual thing, probably in the the tumultuous times of the pandemic.
Right.
So I read the first issue of Garth Ennis's Dear Becky, which is a boys spinoff. And if you've read The Boys, you know who Becky is. She's the late lamented love of the character Butcher. And the first issue, it's sort of a flashback. It was great. I got the latest issue of 5 Years by Terry Moore in that little shipment as well, which is it's just Terry Moore bringing all his characters together in his so-called Mooreverse. The culminating in this sort of epic story that still retains that personal touch you expect from his characters. It's wonderful. Otherwise, I've been reading older stories. Like I've been going through the Avengers. I mentioned this in a previous recording. The Masters of Evil take over the Mansion story. And that's a larger trade. So they also have issues before involving Kang, which are just a delight because it's Roger Stern writing and John Buscema and Tom Palmer doing the illustrations. So that's I've been relishing that. What else? Not much else. I'm waiting for my next shipment, and I have a lot of stuff on my nightstand to read. And Murd, I'm going to be reading Crisis this summer.
I encourage that in anyone at any time.
I know, brother, because I've read Crisis twice in my life, and after the magnificent job you and Peter have been doing on these latest Crisis episodes, I wanted to read it fresh again. So that'll probably be the next trade I read.
Well, Chris, I'm sitting here wearing my custom Crisis #1 T-shirt, cheering you on.
Honored, brother, honored. And I'm also reading right now. Hint, hint, a lot of stuff involving Nick Fury. So,
what a strange hint to make. I wonder why. That's so
Indeed.
weird. Murd, speaking of custom T-shirts, I actually just printed off one for my girlfriend. After watching Doom Patrol, she's been obsessed with Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. And I printed off a custom T-shirt of the first appearance of Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man, and it just got delivered to her the other day, and it looks amazing.
One of the many amazing things about you is you can take something so geeky like that and make it sexy and romantic.
Well, sometimes you just got to try.
Yep. You prevailed, sir. You prevailed.
Yep. Murd, I'm sure you've been reading plenty of things that have nothing to do with an upcoming episode.
Well, yes. All the things that have nothing to do with an upcoming episode have pretty well been taken care of.
Nice.
But I have been reading, like Chris, mostly older things. Primarily from near the beginning of 2005, as the early rumblings of Infinite Crisis are resounding in the air. It's kind of interesting to see how the seeds are being planted in various DC Universe titles. Adam Strange investigating the disappearance of Planet Ran, and the inner circle of the New Secret Society, with Cheshire and Deathstroke and Dr. Psycho and so forth, just kind of making mysterious appearances here and there. So something is coming up. And DC Countdown, the full title of which you may remember, was not revealed until the release of that one shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know this is especially a watershed moment for you, Shane.
Yeah.
Yep, that's coming up on my. I read that when it came out, and it was just fantastic for a number of reasons. Despite the an unfortunate loss to the superhero community that had to happen in that one. But yeah, that's coming up in my reread pile. Because there are a number of things that I read at the time and just kind of threw into the long boxes afterwards that I'm going to need to dig out again and reread in sequence. As history's skein unwinds.
I absolutely loved that time. Adam Strange Planet Heist and all the build-up in the DC Universe at that time, I loved it. I thought Planet Heist was a fantastic story.
Yeah, that is the way, like textbook, to construct the lead up to a big mysterious crossover event.
Yep.
And as sad as the events of Countdown are, it was still a fantastic journey and a surprise. Like when you're reading the story, you just think, oh, I hope not. Yeah, they did. Oh, whoa, oh boy. But it was a great build up to that point. Just fantastic at that time.
Two comments that I'll add. Murd, I certainly hope you're going to also listen to the corresponding Comic Geek Speak episodes as you get further along in your reading, as Deemer brought up last Comic Talk.
Well, actually, I was doing that at the time. Even I was still in grad school at Bowling Green, but the first episodes of CGS I ever listened to, much less appeared on, were. Oh no! Wait a minute. I think I'm giving myself a lie here. Yeah, because. Yeah, I made my debut on the podcast with the Batman Begins episode, and that was like June of 2005, I think, and Infinite Crisis didn't start until months later.
Yep.
But anyway, I did listen to those episodes.
Very good.
And lo, a legend was born.
Well, my sojourn into podcasting can be traced back to Countdown to Infinite Crisis, actually. And you were on the episode where the geeks discuss Countdown to Infinite Crisis, as I just found accidentally. Episode 63 of October 6, 2005. You were on to discuss Underworld Unleashed later on in the episode. Yep. But my first interview that I ever had with anyone was with Phil Jimenez. As part of my college project, which wound up being Comic Books Not Just for Kids Anymore. And I had a full interview with Phil that I wound up releasing as like my 5th episode of Geek Speak back in the day. And that was my first sojourn into podcasting, essentially. So that's
wow.
That issue has a very, very high place in my heart for that reason.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to piggyback off of something that Murd said, containing all of this, including Ted Kord stuff. And I'm going to preface spoilers in case no one's seen this yet or heard this. But I did pick up the first 5 issues of the new Suicide Squad because of some mention of a specific character that I'm quite interested to see how it unfolds in this series. I was able to get 1 through 5 on mail order. I have to find 6 and 7, and I pre-ordered 8 just to see how the story unfolds a little bit and how much involvement a certain character has in the DC universe now.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Well, let me know how it goes, because I am not privy to that myself.
Okay.
Excellent. And meanwhile, in the world of trivia.
Play it, baby.
You asked for playing, and I played.
Well, I was imagining Murd doing his air harp.
Oh, but of course.
As indeed I was.
I know you wouldn't disappoint, brother. Thank you.
Excellent. Time once again for Muddle the Murd here on Comic Geek Speak, and the Murd has more.
Yes. Here are the full details. Muddle the Murd is our recurring trivia segment here on Comic Geek Speak nowadays, in which you, the listeners, endeavor to muddle the Murd, that's me, by sending in groups of 3 comic book trivia questions for me to attempt to answer. Each three-question submission must consist of one Marvel question, one DC question, and one question about comics from some other third publisher. And they also must break down chronologically to one question about comics from before 1970, one about comics published between 1970 and 2000 AD inclusive, and one question about comics published post-2000. So submit your questions, which meet these criteria. Don't forget to send along the answers to those questions as well, because otherwise how will we know whether you've succeeded or not? And if I cannot answer even one of them correctly, if I get all three of them wrong, you will then have Muddle the Murd, and I will be mailing you your very own Murdificent prize.
And also, just to add, please make sure the questions have to do with the plot of the issue, and they're not minuscule details that can only be found with a magnifying glass.
Right. Preferably something significant to plot or character. Just
Yes.
no background details and nothing having to do with extra textual things like the house ads or whatever.
Exactly. And
Murd, the way you read those instructions was especially impressive this time. It was almost reminiscent of like a mid-20th century newscaster. It was outstanding.
Thank you, Chris. That's what I'm aspiring to here.
Tom Brokaw, CGS News.
And that's the way it is.
And what is the prize for today?
Well, today's contestant, Ian, will be playing for the last piece of original art I have in my prize bag. And it is a piece of Katie Cook original art. It is a lovely 9 by 12-inch Gronk strip in pencil and ink with a few handwritten notes of Katie's own in the lower margin.
Excellent. Not only is Gronk one of my favorite things, but following Katie on Facebook and watching her history in Animal Crossing on the Switch is also one of my favorite things. So excellent. And today's submission is by a Mr. Tobiah Headkey, and he has this to say to us. Hello, gentlemen. Greetings from Wisconsin. I've been a devoted listener for several years now, and each time a Muddle the Murd segment comes on, I think I should try that one of these days. And then I never do. Well, today is the day that changes, I guess, because I finally put together a 3-question quiz for Adam to undoubtedly ace. The Muddle segments I enjoy most are the ones that are themed, so I'll be trying my hand at one of those. Seeing as how my home state of Wisconsin can claim numerous comic creators as natives, today's theme will be just that, Wisconsin. And here we begin with Indie 1970 to 2000. In 1981, Mike Barron and Steve Rude created the truly wonderful Nexus while living in Madison, Wisconsin. Existing firmly within the space opera genre, this sci-fi series featured a number of amazing alien races, technology, and planets for Rude to draw. One of these planets was actually a moon that served as home base for Nexus and his companions. What is the name of the moon where Nexus lived?
Oh, boy. Yeah, that is a humdinger of a question. And it's, boy, I know I'm going to smack myself full in the face as soon as I hear the answer because I cannot summon the name of this place to mind. I've read enough of enough Nexus miniseries from Dark Horse in the 90s. I collected a string of them back then. And I know I've heard this. All I'm thinking of is Cairn, but that's the headquarters of the acronymic Legion from the early 90s. Dagnabbit. Hellpopium. I don't know.
That, unfortunately, is not correct. Shane, Chris, any guesses?
No, not on that one.
Okay. The answer is Ilum, short for asylum, because Nexus invited refugees from other planets to live there with him.
Oh, yeah. See, there we go. That was the sound of me smacking myself in the face. Because I can picture it. Y-L-U-M. I didn't make that connection between that and asylum. I always pronounced it Ilum in my mind, but yep, I knew I'd recognize it as soon as I heard it.
Yep.
Well played, Tobiah.
Yeah.
Just for the record, he may have said that I will undoubtedly ace these questions, but no such lack of doubt existed in my mind going in.
Murd, just don't defenestrate yourself over this or anything that extreme.
Oh, that's all right. There are no windows convenient.
Well, we begin this next question with DC pre-1970. This next one is admittedly a stretch to fit the Wisconsin theme, but here goes. Bruce Wayne's first love interest and fiancée, actress Julie Madison. See what I mean? Madison. First appeared in Detective Comics number 31, and her last Golden Age appearance was in issue number 49. In that issue, before she and Bruce split, and she left the book for nearly 30 years, the head of her film studio convinced her to adopt a stage name with Shakespearean connections. What stage name does Julie Madison take?
Is he looking for a full name here, first and last?
He is looking for first and last, correct.
Oh, drat. Shakespearean connotations. Okay, Juliet Desdemona.
I do like that one, but it's not the right answer.
Darn.
Chris, Shane, anybody?
No clue.
No, not on that.
The correct answer, Portia Storm. The name was inspired by the character from The Merchant of Venice. Worth noting, Julie Madison would reappear in 1978's World's Finest number 253 as Princess Portia of Moldavia. Of course, that issue was written by Bob Haney, who was never on speaking terms with continuity. So does it really count as an appearance?
To say the least, Tobiah, to say the least. That's a good one. Excellent question. I know you could even take the Shakespearean connection a bit further when you consider that storm is a synonym for tempest.
Well done, sir. Well done.
It's got to chill.
And finally, we conclude with Marvel post-2000s.
All right, last chance time here for the Murdster.
Here we go. Milwaukee, Wisconsin can boast being the hometown of Pabst Beer, the Milwaukee Brewers, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't know who that is, and I'm clearly butchering the hell out of that. Laverne and Shirley, a life-size bronze statue of Fonzie, and most importantly, for the sake of this question, the Great Lakes Avengers, with a membership that includes the likes of Doorman, Flatman, and Big Bertha. How could they not be awesome?
I have no idea.
Exactly.
I've never seen them as anything less than that myself.
I agree entirely. Dan Slott did some great stuff with them. Maybe it was when they got even awesomer by adding the genuinely high-quality character of Squirrel Girl to their ranks during the 2005 GLA miniseries.
Which is by the aforementioned Dan Slott.
Indeed. Plus, she brought friends. At her insistence, 2 squirrels were accepted as full members of the Great Lakes Avengers. Name either of the 2 squirrel companions that became full members of the Great Lakes Avengers.
Tobiah Headkey, I would not be you for all the world. You have let your doom in through your front door. Last unicorn, ladies and gentlemen.
Love it.
Tippy Toe.
You are correct, sir.
And the other one, I believe, was Monkey Joe.
Boom shakalaka.
I have not. I'm just weeks away from reading the first issue of that excellent miniseries. And I knew that Girl was involved, and I remember just kind of flipping through them and seeing, like, at the end of each issue, like there was a little caption that said "Monkey Joe says," and there'd be a little concluding joke featuring a word balloon from the squirrel.
Yep, you are correct. Monkey Joe was the narrator of the series even after his death in issue 3. He kept on narrating, by the way, just with more flies and eventually a halo. Or his replacement, Tippy Toe, who remained a mainstay in Squirrel Girl's fantastic solo series. And that is that, sir, and it has been avoided.
Murd triumphant once again.
Yes, but mile-high kudos and cheese curds to Tobiah for some excellent trivia there.
Absolutely. I will raise a Miller in his honor.
Yes, and I'll raise a Werner's Ginger Ale. Yes, which I know is a Wisconsin specialty, which, thanks to our mutual friend Brandon Christopher, I have actually sampled.
Yes.
Nice.
I have had the most of Werner's. I did actually. I think Brandon also gave me one, if I remember correctly. But I've had it most in Florida because my girlfriend's family loves Werner's, and I've grown to really enjoy the unique taste of a Werner's ginger ale. It's unlike any other ginger ale you'll ever have.
Now, something that went through my head during all that, speaking of Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yep.
If you ever want to see a late 70s, early 80s type movie, check out 1980s Midnight Madness. It starred David Naughton, Stephen Furst, and a very young Michael J. Fox.
Really?
Where they set off on a multi-team scavenger hunt, and one of the pit stops is the Pabst Blue Ribbon Brewery.
Ah.
It is cheesy as all get out, but I absolutely love this movie.
Yeah, I'm bringing it up right now. Yeah, look at Michael J. Fox, how young he is. Oh, boy.
Wow. Yeah.
It is a hoot to watch. It is goofy, silly, cheesy fun.
That's okay. Add that to the list of movies I didn't know exist until just now.
I first caught wind of that back in the early 80s when it made its way to HBO. And my mom, dad, myself, my sister, we watched it over and over again. Years and years later, I found a DVD copy of it and gave it to my mom for her birthday or Christmas or something. And then have since, of course, gotten it back since she passed away. But, yeah.
David Vaughn's from American Werewolf in London. Okay.
Yep. Well, see, now, I know he's in that now, but my first knowledge of him was from Pam Dauber's My Sister Sam TV show, which I absolutely loved and ended so tragically with the death of the one co-star. God, years ago, but yeah, that's where I first encountered him, not realizing it was the same guy that was in Midnight Madness until years later when I started making the connections over the internet and stuff.
You know, I watched American Werewolf in London again only recently. I hadn't seen it in such a long time. That's a funky movie, man. Like that. Yeah. that movie's a trip. I really enjoyed that movie because it's there's aspects of it that are so out there. It's really enjoyable.
I just posted the poster to Midnight Madness in our chat, gentlemen. And, I mean, for a comic book podcast, it's something that I feel like is incredibly appropriate because I need to find out who drew this because it is almost in like a Mad Magazine-esque style.
Yeah.
And
look at that.
I love it in every single way.
Yep.
Yeah, that's something special.
Incidentally, My Sister Sam, it was Rebecca Schaefer who was murdered by a fan, which started the changing of all kinds of privacy laws way back like 1989, 1990, something like that.
Wow. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, the artist was David McMacken, I believe.
Okay.
I don't know if I know him from anything else, but now I know him from this.
And the way you just have complete command of your sources, though, your fingers are just like Quicksilver.
I just happen to have a laptop in front of me, and I know how to type. So what else do we have on the docket, gentlemen?
Well, so other older things that I've been reading lately. Mm-hmm. I just finished, or I'm about to finish, I should say. I'm near the end of my read-through of Roy Thomas's mid to late 70s run on The Invaders.
Oh, nice.
So, yep, that was a labor of love for Roy, and it lasted a full 41 issues. I don't think I'd realized until I managed to amass all of them myself just how long that this sort of retro-themed, period piece comic had lasted in the mid to late 70s. I've just gotten up to the point where Miss America and the Wizard have joined, and 3 issues to go until the end. And I'm also working my way through the second year of John Byrne's Namor the Submariner series of the early 90s.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and special thanks to Chris Beckett for providing us copies of that to read, because it's really quite good. I mean, it's Byrne doing every darn thing in the production of that comic except the coloring, which is done by Glynis Oliver, I think. And it's the adventures of the Avenging Son. As this was where we've often made mention of this interesting bit of retcon. We learned that the reason Namor's personality and his attitude towards the surface dwellers has been so erratic over the years is because he has an imbalance in his blood as a result of his mixed Atlantean and human heritage. So that explains lots of wildly contradictory writing and characterization over the years in one fell swoop. It's one of Byrne's better retcons. And it's just fun, textured Marvel Universe adventures in Byrne's big splashy style. And I'm having a lot of fun with the ride. I read the first 12 issues last spring, and I passed them on to you, Chris. And now I'm working my way through year 2.
And Murd, I'm glad you brought that up because those 12 issues are on my nightstand for summer reading as well. So
Excellent.
once I get to that, we can have a full summit over it. Looking forward to that.
I've got some quick hits that I want to touch on real quick. For one thing, before we get the highly anticipated live-action version of Sandman, which is going to be coming to Netflix eventually, I keep talking about it, and nothing's official yet on when it's going to be released. However, the audio book adaptation will be available on Audible July 15th of Sandman.
Wow.
And the best part of all of this, it will be essentially almost like an audio drama. It's not just going to be one narrator.
Them.
I love when they do that as well. And voicing the Sandman himself will be James McAvoy.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
That could work.
Yep. And you've got the rest of the cast is filled out. Like Riz Ahmed is in it, Kat Dennings, Taron Egerton, BB Newworth, Andy Serkis, and Michael Sheen, all involved with this in one way or another as different voices. And this is going to be available on Audible on July 15th. And I may have to plunk down the money to listen to it because that's an all-star cast to say the least.
Yeah, wow.
Yep. But it reminds me. Have any of you guys ever listened to the Kingdom Come audio drama?
Absolutely.
I have not.
I have 2 copies of the tape cassettes here, and I have it somehow. Somebody gave me an MP3 download of it.
First off, you're welcome, because that was me.
Excellent.
I digitized it back in the day. I came across a copy. I think it might have actually been Chris who had it. Yes, it was. And I took an old tape deck boombox that I had and connected it to my computer and digitized the whole thing.
Nice.
And it's available in multiple parts on YouTube. And I think it may even be my source audio because it has a familiar hiss to it. So it's certainly possible they took what I had and they just broke it down. But if you wanted to go chapter by chapter, it is available on YouTube under the account William Wold in multiple parts, chapter by chapter. Well worth listening to if you're a fan.
Oh, absolutely.
It's excellently done, and it's never been released digitally in any form, only on tape.
No.
Yep. So go figure.
I also want to bring up, before I forget, because Murd mentioned the Submariner, and I think Murd would especially appreciate this, but we all would. This came out a few months back. Marvel's Snapshots #1, The Submariner. Written by Alan Brennert, art by, wait for it, Jerry Ordway.
Mm-hmm.
And it is let's call it a late Golden Age story where the Submariner is trying to have maintain his relationship with Betty Dean. And he ends up, he's at like a Coney Island, different places, and he ends up having to fight this Nazi, there's the Nazi with the shark head. And Captain America appears, the Whizzer, the Human Torch, Toro. Who's the heroine with the symbol on her chest, the shield chest symbol on her chest?
Oh, that's Miss America.
Miss America. And so it's Ordway doing those types of characters as only he can. What's especially moving about this story is that Namor is suffering from PTSD because he helped liberate one of the Nazi death camps. And it's about Betty Dean trying to help him accept the fact that he needs help. And, of course, it's Namor, so that's not necessarily going to go the way one would thought it should. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of it's really from Betty Dean's perspective. It's really well done. And there's a great attention to detail. Like they even have Namor in those black trunks with the yellow band and the red S symbol. But it's a magnificent story. It's a great one-shot. And if this is an example of the Marvel, how good the Marvel Snapshot series is going to be, sign me up going forward. But it's one. And there's a great splash page where they show the Human Torch, Toro, Bucky, Miss America, Captain America, the Wizard all appear together at Coney Island.
Oh,
so
man!
Here they come.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, not to worry, Chris. I do have that Marvel Snapshot and the other two with a Fantastic Four and Captain America that have since been published.
Terrific. I look forward to your opinion on that.
And as someone who very much misses Coney Island, I may have to pick that up just to experience it again.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that Alan Brennert's story pleases. Because Brennert is a man whose work, it's appeared in comics now and then, especially had a flurry of activity back around the late 70s, early 80s, when he was also submitting scripts for the Buck Rogers show that we're all so fond of.
Oh.
So nice to hear that he's made a return to comics and that he's still in fine form.
Oh, he's in great form in this story.
I wanted to also bring up that since we did mention G.I. Joe, we may as well mention Transformers. There is a new Netflix animated series coming on July 30th, Transformers War for Cybertron.
Yes,
Wow.
I did hear about that.
Yep. And it's an anime, and it's going to be released as a trilogy. So I think it's being released as movies. And it's just supposed to be essentially a retelling of the War for Cybertron between the Gen 1 Transformers. So Optimus and the Autobots versus the Decepticons with a whole new take on it.
Now it can be told.
Indeed.
Yeah, I am interested.
So looking forward to that coming out at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's pretty much all I had on tap.
Me too.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think that's all I had.
Mm-hmm.
What did I just pick up? Something. Let me think.
It'll come to you. Steady.
Yeah. It's totally blanking in my head.
Yeah.
Massage
I don't
your
know.
temples a little bit. That usually works for me.
Yeah. Think.
Make
I
that
guess.
Professor X gesture. Right?
I'm sitting in the Pooh Bear stance. Think
Think of what it smelled like, Shane. What did it smell like?
Was it
Yeah,
bigger
that
than a
doesn't-
bread box?
That doesn't help unless I open the action figures.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Next
I'll have
time,
to do
brother,
some
next
searching.
time.
Yeah. I can't think of what it was.
All right.
It's not like I'm going many places or getting many things, so it shouldn't be hard. But I just can't think of it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Next time.
I haven't bought a new comic or trade in a long time now for that very reason. But probably gonna
Yeah.
eventually. I mean, me reading this Simpsons Futurama thing was me going to my shelf and being like, "What haven't I read yet? That's sitting right
Yeah.
here."
Yeah.
And I've got tons of those to go through before I do anything
Oh
else.
yeah.
Yep. I will mention that my final article with Engadget came out a couple of days ago, and anybody who happened to pick it up when it was out, there was a video game bundle that came out with literally thousands of games called the itch.io bundle for racial justice and equality. And I wrote up 2 games from it as experiences that I've had so far. And that was released on Engadget a couple days ago. So if anybody who wants to check that out can just go into the archives and search for itch.io, and it'll come right up. So my last piece for now, writing online, but that will hopefully change in the next few weeks. Hint, hint.
Hope so, brother.
Yep,
Hope so.
indeed. All right.
All right, comrades, I think we've shot our bolt.
We have
Yeah.
indeed. Okay. In that case, let me bring up the bolt-shotting music. 1 second here. Where are we? Here we go. All right, Shane, ready when you are.
All right. Send us, let me start over there. Visit us at comicgeekspeak.com. To send us an email, the address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. To leave a voicemail, the number is 267-702-6642. Stop by thecomicforums.vanillacommunity.com. Let us know what you've been reading and doing lately. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. Thanks to everyone who contributes to the episode and sends in Muddle the Murds. We appreciate it and could not do it without you. Keep them coming. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.
Hey. Come on, you. There we go.
You got it on Wednesday, and you was psyched about it, going to the volume up. These guys will talk about it, everything that geeks love. From cakes to laser beams, opinions like the seasons, on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek. Uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This